Welcome back, everyone. So in this video, let's actually move out another component that we were talking about, which is our search box. So here we already have our search box folder. So let's just do the same thing and create a new file called searchbox.component.jsx. Once again, we want to make sure we import component from React. And then we're going to initialize our class searchbox, which extends component. And then inside of our render method, we want to return the actual HTML related to our search box. So here, I'm just going to cut this out. Go back here, paste it in. And before we actually figure out how we're going to get this into our component, let's just make sure to also export our component, just so that we remember to do this when we need to actually access this component from the code that uses it. So similarly, let's talk about props again. We know that this input is supposed to be a generic search box component. What it does is it takes some text and it does something. What that something is, we don't really know. However, here, how do we genericize what this input is? Well, there's a couple things here. What are some of the props of a search box that we know we want to change? And what are the ones that we don't want to change? Well, we know that we want to keep the type search. If this is a search box component, we want to use a search input. Now, if you're unfamiliar, what a search type on this input does is it turns our input box into an actual search box one. And what that does is it allows us to actually generate this little X button. So when you hit it, it actually clears out the text. So automatically it builds that into the feature for us. If we did not have that, we would not be able to actually have that X. It would just be a normal input field. So that's why we know that if we're doing a search box, we probably want that feature. So we want to keep this type search. But what about everything else? Everything else, we probably want to make sure that they can be dynamic, because we probably don't want the class name to be search box for every single search box. That's not specific enough. You can imagine that if an application has multiple search boxes, in order for us to be able to distinguish search boxes from each other, they might need different class names. So what we can do is we can actually use another feature with props. But before I talk about those ones, let's just make sure that we first just enable our onChange as well as maybe our placeholder. So what we're going to do is we are going to first look at this onChange. OnChange is a callback that runs whenever change happens on our input. What that happens is up to the component that's trying to render the search box. Now you might be wondering, should we bring in this search field text into the onChange? Well, let's think about that. Where are we actually using this search field state? We're actually using it inside of our app component. We're filtering down our monsters from the search field. So that means that because this app component utilizes the search field value that our search box actually has, in order to determine what it's trying to do, which is to filter the monsters, we actually need this string stored inside of this level. Now, there's different patterns that you can do this, but this is a good way of thinking about with React components. So that means that what onSearchChange is, as far as for our search box component in the current context, is it is just supposed to update app.js's state search field value. And that's exactly what our onSearchChange method here does. So we want to pass onSearchChange into the search box component. So let's think about what we're going to name this prop inside of our search box. We know that we're attaching it to the onChange of the input prop. So what this is it's an onChange handler, because that's the function. We're passing a handler function, an event handler. So what we can call this is exactly that. It's an onChange handler. this.props.onChangeHandler. So let's just comment this out for now, and let's just make sure at least this is working from what we've, again, just defined. So I'm going to default export it out. I'm going to copy SearchBox. I'm going to go into app.js. I'm going to import it from the respective file. Import SearchBox from components-searchbox-searchbox.component. I'm going to copy SearchBox. I'm going to go down to where it was before, and then I'm going to pass on change handler, which is equal to on search change. And now if I save this, let's go back. What we see is that because we commented out our placeholder, there's no placeholder. But if we type in, we see that our application still works as expected. Amazing. So everything here is working. Now this placeholder text. We know that with a placeholder text, this might also change. This search box is supposed to be a generic search box. Just because in this particular case, we're searching for monsters doesn't mean all our search boxes are going to say search monsters. So this is another property that we probably want to change and make generic. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say this.props.placeholder. And similarly, let's just make sure that this works. And I'm going to say placeholder, which is equal to search monsters. Actually, I don't need these squiggly brackets for that. Let's just say search monsters. Let's save this. Go back and see. There it is, search monsters. Everything still works. And finally, for class name, let's do the same thing. We can here say this.props.className. And then similarly in app.js, we do class name is equal to SearchBox. And now if we save and we go back to our application, let's just make sure that class name is being applied. It is. So everything here works as we had it before. Now, one quick note is that you may be wondering why are all these other props named the exact same as the base props, such as class name and placeholder are the same prop name as the one in input, whereas here for onChange, I call it onChangeHandler. You can call it onChange as well. In your props, you just define them the same thing. I just prefer to do it this way myself, so it's a little bit more explicit for me, especially when I'm writing my own components. But again, it's a personal preference thing. It might just be a little bit of a tick thing. It's entirely up to you if you want to keep it the way that you keep it. People will sometimes write these a little differently, just based on the preference. Honestly, a lot of these standards of how you name your props is kind of going to be set on a project by project basis. Sometimes there are different rules depending on who is the architect or the senior developer and what they want to set it up as for consistency across the code base. This is just my personal quirk, is that all of the change, if I want to name an event handler as a prop that I'm passing in, I just say handler to be explicit. That's a personal preference for me. That is really all it is. So we have our search box working. We have our card list component working. Everything here is pretty much going to be the basic setup for our components. In the next video, what we're going to do is now just start styling everything. And we're going to understand how CSS files work inside of React. And through that, we're also going to understand how React builds our project a little bit clearer. So let's talk about that in the next video.